Chapter 11 of Against Odds by Lawrence L. Lynch. This Librivox recording is in the public domain. Recording by Lynne Thompson. Chapter 11. I dislike a mystery. I had not meant to do it, but while I stood there with her clear brown eyes, not repellent but fearless and full of dignity, fixed upon my face, in polite but guarded inquiry, the determination suddenly seized me to be as frank and truthful in dealing with this frank and truthful woman as I had a right to be. I had meant to return the bag, ask her pardon for tampering with its contents, and say no more, only keeping as much as possible an eye to her welfare and safety if I saw it menaced. Now I meant something more. And so, while she held my card in daintily gloved fingers and looked at me with level questioning eyes, I said, with the thought of the approaching brunette underlying my words: "Miss Jenrys, I am the person who was of some small assistance a few days ago, when you came near incurring serious injury at the hands of a pair of Turks and a sedan chair." I saw a look of remembrance, if not of recognition, flash into her face, and I hurried on. "I do not mention this as entitling me to your notice, but I ask you to accept my word as that of one having no personal motive save the desire to serve you and to listen to me for a few moments." She was scanning my face nervously, and now she said: "I do not recall your face, though I remember the circumstance to which you refer. If you are the gentleman who held back that reckless foreigner with a strong arm, and so saved me from something more serious than a little pain in the shoulder, I am certainly your debtor, and I am glad of this opportunity to thank you." A little back of the place where she stood, in a corner, hemmed in on one side by a long glass case of exhibits of various sorts, was an armchair, placed there, doubtless, for the ease of the person in charge of said case and its contents. There was no such person present, however, at that hour, and I pointed toward the chair and said: "If you will kindly take that seat, so that I may not feel that I am compelling you to stand, I will not detain you long." She turned toward the seat, looked at it, at me, and finally beyond me and across the room, as if debating, and half inclined to pass me and escape, and then I saw a sudden withdrawal of the eyes and a compression of the lips, slight but perceptible. She turned, as if in haste almost, and seated herself in the chair, first turning it toward the windows, so that her back would be toward the interior of the room, and then, to my surprise, she beckoned me, with a half smile, to a place upon the window–seat, which would narrowly serve this purpose. I had not once looked back or about me, but I did not flatter myself that my words alone had won for me this graciousness. She had seen the little brunette, and desired to avoid her. "Thank you," I said, when we were both seated. "I will now come to the point at once. You must know, then, that after you had passed on and out of sight in the crowd, I discovered at my very feet, so close that no one had ventured to pick it up, if any one had seen it in that crowd, a black leather bag, a chatelaine, I think you ladies call it." "Oh, you found my bag?" The look of reserve was lost in a quick and charming smile. "I am very glad." "I found it, and I tried to follow you and restore it, but you had disappeared." I had indeed, in at the first gate, which happened to be the Javanese village. That explains my failure. I had given up my search, and was about to go on my way, when I was approached by a young lady, a small person with dark eyes, and wearing a large plumed sailor hat, who explained that she was a friend to the lady whose bag I had in my hand, that she had seen me pick it up, and would now restore it to her. "And you gave it to her? Was it not right?" "The person was an impostor." "Is it possible? And yet 2 days after, as you were entering the grounds, and I was about to approach you, I saw this same person greet you, seemingly, and walk on in your company. It made a coward of me. I dared not approach in the face of a friend of yours, whom I had treated as an impostor." "How do you mean?" "I mean that I doubted the person, and refused to give her the bag. And I hurriedly made confession, telling her how at last I was forced to read her friend's letter, and then her own, in order to learn her name, and that then her address was still a mystery. I had but one chance of finding you," I concluded. "You had informed your friend that your apartments were conveniently near the 57th Street entrance." "Oh, indeed!" I had seen the quick colour flash into her face at my mention of the letters, and of having read them, and the restraint was once more evident in face and voice, when she said: "I thank you, sir, but the contents of the bag, it was hardly worth the trouble you have taken to restore it. That is—" "I have it with me, Miss Jenrys, and when I am sure that we are not under surveillance, I will place it in your hands. And now I owe it to myself to make my own conduct in this affair and my present position clearer. At first it was with me a simple matter of returning a lost article to a lady. Failing to overtake you, I might perhaps have turned it over to some guard, but for the interference of the brunette, who at once put me on the defensive and aroused my suspicion. It somehow seemed to me that the young person was more than commonly anxious to possess your bag. And then it occurred to me that the bag might contain something, or some information, that she especially wished to possess. My interest was aroused, and then I took the liberty of examining your bag, and having done so, I determined at least to attempt to return it to you, and to ask you to pardon the liberty I had taken with your correspondence." "I suppose any one would have done the same," she said, rather coldly. "What I do not comprehend is why you did not return the bag to me in the presence of this person, of whom you might have warned me." "It is that which I am about to explain," I replied gravely, "and I must, for the sake of others whose interests I represent, ask you to regard what I am now about to tell you as a confidence made necessary because of the circumstances. Miss Jenrys, the card in your hand bears my real name, but few know me by it, because I so often bear others, as one of the necessities of my profession. I am known here to those who know me at all as one of those secret service men you have no doubt heard or read of. In other words—" "A detective?" She bent forward and scanned my face narrowly. "When I saw you in company with the little brunette, as I have since called her for want of a better title, I was at first amazed and inclined to doubt my own sagacity. But when—I am making a clean breast of it, Miss Jenrys—when I followed you, doubtful what course to pursue, I saw you joined by a gentleman, and I saw the brunette slip away from you, as she would hardly have done, as you would hardly have allowed her to do, had she been friend or acquaintance. I am enrolled here as a special, but I came, in company with another, with a definite object in view. Within these grounds are several persons under suspicion, and whom we are hoping to capture and convict, and when I tell you that only yesterday I learned that this same little brunette who claimed your property and friendship was seen in company with two suspected persons, you will hardly wonder that what I had attempted to do from purest courtesy from one stranger to another, and that other a lady, I felt impelled to do from a sense of duty, as well as desire to save one whom I had seen to be alone, and who might, for aught I could tell, be menaced by some unsuspected danger." There was no fear on her face, only a slightly troubled look, as she asked: "What do you mean?" "Simply that it is my duty to warn you, and to ask you if you know of any reason why you should be followed, or watched, or menaced by any manner of danger." "No." She slowly shook her fair head. "No reason whatever." "And may I ask you about this person, this brunette? I would not say this woman." She started slightly and leaned toward me. "Is she here still?" she whispered. I turned my head and cast a deliberate glance around the room. "I do not see her," I said, "but she may be below, with an eye on the staircase." "It's more than likely. It's little I can tell you," she said. "She ran up to me that morning at the gate, her face beaming and her hand held out. and when she was close to me, and I drew away from her, she began the most profuse apologies. She was very near-sighted, and she had mistaken me for an old acquaintance she had not seen for some time. Then she kept on by my side, prattling about her mamma, who had not been able to leave the hotel since they came, of her dread of being alone, and her eagerness to see the fair. She had hoped, when she saw me, that she had found someone who would let her just follow along, so that she would not feel so much alone, etc. I did not like her volubility, yet I could see no way, short of absolute rudeness, of shaking her off. When I met a New York acquaintance down near the lake shore, she quite surprised me by quietly slipping away. Do you think—" She paused, and arose with a quick, easy grace which seemed inherent. "Will you come down and be introduced to my aunt?" she asked. "I have great confidence in her judgment of—gentlemen, and she ought to know this. That is, if you can give me the time." "My time is entirely yours," I declared recklessly, "and nothing would give me more pleasure than to pay my entirely sincere respects to that lovely woman I saw in your company, and who, I am almost certain, saw me playing the spy upon her niece." She smiled as she moved toward the stairway, at the head of which she turned and paused a moment. "Do you think she will approach us?" she asked. "I can't imagine what she will do." "But she will see you, and—" I think the smile on my face stopped her. "She did not recognize me," I said. "She may not." She looked into my face keenly, and then a quick look of intelligence flashed into her eyes. "Oh!" It was all she said, but it meant much. She took a step downward and turned again. "Of course I must not enlighten my aunt?" "If you are willing to let it lie between us two, at first." "Certainly," she said gravely, and went on down the stairs. At the landing, halfway down, where the staircase turned to right and left, I saw over her shoulder a little dark figure standing in the west doorway. "Turn to the right," I said over her shoulder. "The longest way round, you know." She nodded, and without a glance in the other direction went down the east side, turned at the foot to wait for me with the air of one quite absorbed in an agreeable companion, and went out at the door facing the Minnesota Building and the morning sun. As we stepped outside, I paused in my turn. "One word, if you will allow it. I may have to learn more of this person. It may make difficulties for me, and, who knows, perhaps for you, if she imagines that you know her for what she is, or guesses, as she might—" "What you are?" she interposed. "You may trust me." We turned at the corner, and came once more to the west side and the little arbour. As we rounded the corner, my companion suddenly slipped her little hand beneath my elbow, giving it at the same time a significant little pressure. The brunette, having doubtless watched our progress through the window, was coming down the steps and straight toward us. For just a passing moment I knew how Miss Jenrys looked to the friends who knew her, and whom she knew best. She was smiling and preoccupied as we stepped within the enclosure. "See," she said, hastening her own steps and mine, with a bright look toward the benches, "there is auntie." The little brunette was almost abreast of us, and my companion's smiling gaze was still fixed upon the figure under the vines. Then she turned her head, and just at the place where we could turn from the walk, let her eyes turn toward the figure just opposite us. It was charmingly done. Just as she made a step in the direction of the arbour, her eyes fell quite naturally upon the face of the brunette. "Good morning," she said smilingly, and with a little nod of her head. But there was no slackening of her steps. With the words on her lips we were off the walk, and across the grass to the place not 10 paces away, where the sweet-faced Quakeress sat, knitting and looking her surprise. "Auntie, I have brought you a new acquaintance," Miss Jenrys said, in a voice slightly raised, and then, looking after the retreating figure of the brunette, and seeing that she was quite out of hearing, she added, "and I have found my bag." I took the bag from my pocket, where it had grown to seem of quite familiar bulk, and laid it in her lap. And she began at once to narrate to the wondering Quakeress the adventures of the little bag. She heard it through, and here and there a soft little exclamation of wonder, and I saw that she was slightly deaf, and quite given to misunderstanding and miscalling words and phrases. "Thee has been very lucky, my dear," the good soul said when Miss Jenrys had done, "and the young man has been at great pains to restore thy reticule. It was hardly worth so much trouble, do you think?" "Not in actual value, perhaps, auntie, but it contained one or two little keepsakes that I valued." She breathed a little fluttering sigh. "For the sake of the giver. Is that why thee has mourned the loss of the little bag so much, and said so many unkind things about those poor benighted men of Turkey? Then indeed I must add my thanks to thine." And she turned and extended to me a soft slim hand, ungloved and delicately veined. And then she began to question me about the fair, and the things I had seen, showing in her questions and comments a singular mixture of innocent unworldliness, a native shrewdness, and mother wit. In the midst of our talk, Miss Jenrys broke in with a low, quick exclamation, which caused us to cease and turn toward her. "Mr. Masters," she said in a low tone, "our friend the brunette is looking over from the gallery windows of the Dakota Building. See, the one next the corner toward the bridge. She does not make herself needlessly conspicuous, and it was only by the peculiar shade her figure threw, as she stood at one side, the eastern side, that I was drawn to observe her. My eyes are very strong. I am sure I am not mistaken." "It is only what I expected," I replied. "She will wait, no doubt, until she gets an opportunity to speak with you. Evidently she has some object in view, something to learn from you, or something to tell you. I would give something to know what it is." She looked at me a moment with thoughtful eyes. I had purposely spoken in a guarded tone, and when she answered it was in the same manner. "Would it help you to learn her object?" "It might, and it might give us a hint as to their reasons for following you." "Their reasons? Do you think—" She stopped abruptly. "I don't know what to think, Miss Jenrys. It looked as if this person were following you on the day you lost your bag, and I am convinced that she is in some way connected with two or more men who are more than suspected of being offenders against the law. Miss Jenrys, do you know of any reason why you should be watched, followed? Have you an enemy? Are you in anyone's way?" Instead of answering, she turned to the elder lady, who had been listening like one who but half comprehends. "Auntie, you heard me say that Mr. Masters has strong reasons for thinking that the young woman who just passed us, and who has forced herself upon my notice, and tried to claim my bag, is loitering about now for the purpose of speaking to me." "I heard thee. Yes, June, surely I did, and I cannot understand the thing at all." "Nor do we, Aunt Ann." She turned to me again. "I am getting the fever for investigation," she said, slightly smiling. "I am not alarmed at what you have told me, but I do not doubt it, and if you think it best, if it will help you, I will give that young woman a chance to ease her mind to me. I will leave you here with Aunt Ann, and go, under her eyes, to the building next to this, on to the Washington House, and give her a chance to follow." I waited for the elder lady to speak, and my own surprise was great at her brave proposition. For it was brave, braver than she knew, and I was asking myself if I had the right to let her go to meet an adventuress at the least, a criminal possibly. But her aunt gave the decisive word. "My dear June, thee knows I do not like a mystery. If anything is to be learned concerning this person's strange conduct, we should find it out, and end the following and spying, else it will not be safe for thee to come here alone, even by day." "Fie, Aunt Ann! With all these guards, and half the world looking on? Then I had better go, Mr. Masters." "If you will." "Have you any advice or instructions to give me?" "I think you will know how to proceed. Only it might be well to let her talk if she will." "Certainly." "And, Miss Jenrys, let me beg of you, do not go away from this immediate vicinity, and do not walk upon the streets with this person if it can be avoided. Above all, do not make a further appointment with her." "I will be discreet. Good–bye for a short time, Aunt Ann." She dropped the newly returned bag into her aunt's lap, and went away, as lithe and careless–seeming as the veriest pleasure–seeker. She looked up and down at the windows of the South Dakota house, and then walked deliberately in. CHAPTER XII.